Hey everybody, new frame today. I don't know that it works any better, but we'll start with the Count of Monte Cristo, chapter 56, The Insult. They drove to number 30 Avenue des Champs-Élysées, but the Count was in his bath and could not see anyone. Albert ascertained from Baptiste, however, that he would be going to the opera that evening. Retracing his steps, he said to Beauchamp, "If you have anything to do, Beauchamp, do it at once. I count upon you to go to the opera with me this evening, and if you can bring Chateau Renaud with you, do so." On his return home, Albert sent a message to Franz, Debray, and Morel that he would like to see them at the opera that evening. Then he went to his mother, who, since the events of the previous evening, had kept her room and refused to see anyone. He found her in bed, overwhelmed at their public humiliation. On seeing Albert, she clasped his hand and burst into tears. For a moment he stood silently looking on. It was evident from his pale face and his knit brows that his determination for revenge was gaining in force. "Mother, do you know whether Monsieur de Montcalf has any enemies?" Albert asked. Mercedes started. She noticed the young man did not say "my father." "My son," she replied. "People in the Count's position always have many secret enemies. Furthermore, the enemies one is cognizant of are not always the most dangerous." "I know that, and for that reason I appeal to your perspicacity. You are so observant that nothing escapes you. You remarked, for instance, that at the ball we gave Monsieur de Monte Cristo refused to partake of anything in our house." Mercedes raised herself on an arm. "What has Monte Cristo to do with the question you asked me? You know, mother, Monsieur de Monte Cristo is almost an Oriental, and in order to reserve for themselves the liberty of revenge, Orientals never eat or drink in the house of an enemy." "Do you wish to imply that Monte Cristo is our enemy, Albert?" cried Mercedes. "Who told you so? Why, you are mad, Albert. Monsieur de Monte Cristo has shown us only kindness. He saved your life, and you yourself presented him to us. Oh, I entreat you, my son, if you entertain such an idea, dispel it, and I advise you, nay, I beg of you, to keep on good terms with him." "Mother, you have some reason for wishing me to be friendly with this man," replied the young man with a black look. "I?" said Mercedes. "Yes, you," replied the young man. "Is it because he has the power to do us some harm?" Mercedes shuddered, and casting him a searching glance, said, "You speak strangely and appear to have singular prejudices. What has the Count done to you?" An ironical smile passed over Albert's lips. Mercedes saw it with the double instinct of a woman and a mother, and guessed all, but, being prudent and strong, she hid both her sorrows and her fears. Albert dropped the conversation, but after a moment or two the Countess resumed. "You inquired just now after my health. I will tell you frankly that I do not feel well at all. Stay with me and keep me company. I do not wish to be alone. Mother, you know how happy I should be to comply with your wishes, but important and urgent business compels me to be away from you the whole evening." "Very well," replied Mercedes with a sigh. "Go, Albert. I will not make you a slave to your filial affection." Albert feigned not to hear. He took leave of his mother and went to his room to dress. At 10 minutes to 8, Beauchamp appeared. He had seen Chateau Renaud, who promised to be at the opera before the curtain rose. The two men got into Albert's brougham, and having no reason to hide whither he was going, Albert said in a loud voice, "To the opera." It was not until the end of the second act that Albert sought Monte Cristo in his box. The Count, whose company was Maximilian Morel, had been watching the young man all the evening, so that when he turned round on hearing his door open, he was quite prepared to see Albert before him, accompanied by Beauchamp and Chateau Renaud. "A welcome visit," said the Count with the cordiality which distinguished his form of salutation from the ordinary civilities of the social world. "So you have reached your goal at last. Good evening, Monsieur de Montcalf." "We have not come here to exchange banalities or to make false professions of friendship," returned Albert. "We have come to demand an explanation of you, Count." The quivering voice of the young man was scarcely louder than a whisper. "An explanation at the opera," said the Count, with the calm tone and penetrating look which characterized the man who has complete confidence in himself. "Unfamiliar as I am with the customs of Paris, I should not have thought this was the place to demand an explanation. Nevertheless, when people shut themselves up and will not be seen on the pretext that they are in the bath, we must not miss the opportunity when we happen to meet them elsewhere." "I am not difficult to access, monsieur," said Monte Cristo. "If I mistake not, it was but yesterday that you saw me in my house." "Yesterday I was at your house, monsieur, because I knew not who you were." Albert had raised his voice to such a pitch when saying these last words that everyone in the adjoining boxes and in the corridors heard him. "Where have you come from, monsieur?" said Monte Cristo, outwardly quite calm. "You do not appear to be in your right senses. So long as I understand your perfidies and make you realize that I will be revenged, I am reasonable enough," said Albert in a fury. "I do not understand you. And even if I did, there is no reason for you to speak in such a loud voice. I am at home here, and I alone have the right to raise my voice. Leave the box, Monsieur de Montcalf," said the Count of Monte Cristo as he pointed toward the door with an admirable gesture of command. Albert understood the allusion to his name in a moment. He was about to throw his glove in the Count's face when Morrel seized his hand. Leaning forward in his chair, Monte Cristo stretched out his hand and took the young man's glove, saying in a terrible voice, "I consider your glove as having been thrown, monsieur, and I will return it wrapped around a bullet. Now leave me, or I shall call my servants to throw you out." Utterly beside himself with anger, and with wild and bloodshot eyes, Albert stepped back. Morrel seized the opportunity to shut the door. Monte Cristo took up his glasses again as though nothing out of the ordinary had happened. The man had, indeed, a heart of iron and a face of marble. "How have you offended him?" whispered Morrel. I have not offended him, at least not personally. But there must be some reason for this strange scene. The Count of Montcalf's adventures have exasperated the young man. What shall you do about it? What shall I do? As true as you are here, I shall have killed him before the clock strikes 10 tomorrow morning. That is what I shall do. Morrel took the Count's hands in his. They were so cold and steady that they sent a shudder through him. "Count," said he, "his father loves him so. Tell me not such things," cried Monte Cristo, with the first signs of anger he had yet shown. "I would make him suffer." Morrel let Monte Cristo's hand fall in amazement. "Count, said he. "My dear Maximilian," interrupted the Count, "listen to the charming manner in which Dobrez sings this line, 'Matilda, idol of my heart.' I was the first to discover Dobrez at Naples and the first to applaud him. Bravo! Bravo!" Morrel saw it was useless to say anything more. The curtain, which had been raised at the conclusion of the scene with Albert, had dropped once more, and a knock was heard on the door. "Come in," said Monte Cristo in a voice devoid of all emotion. Beauchamp entered. "Good evening, Monsieur Beauchamp," said Monte Cristo, as though this was the first time he had seen the journalist that evening. "Pray be seated." Beauchamp bowed, and taking a seat, said, "As you saw, monsieur, I accompanied Monsieur de Montcalf just now." "Which in all probability means that you had dined together," replied Monte Cristo, laughing. "I am glad to see you are more sober than he was." "I will own that Albert was wrong in losing his temper, monsieur," said Beauchamp, "and I have come on my own account to apologize for him. Now that I have made my apologies mine, you understand, I should like to add that I consider you too gentlemanly to refuse me some explanation on the subject of your connection with the people of Genina." Then Monsieur Beauchamp, interrupted this extraordinary man, "the Count of Monte Cristo is responsible only to the Count of Monte Cristo. Therefore, not a word on this subject, if you please. I do as I please, Monsieur Beauchamp, and believe me, what I do is always well done." "Honest men are not to be paid with such coin, Count. You must give honorable guarantees." "I am a living guarantee, monsieur," replied the Count, unmoved, but with a threatening look in his eyes. "Both of us have blood in our veins that we are anxious to shed, and that is our mutual guarantee. Deliver this message to the Viscount. I will tell him that before 10 o'clock tomorrow I shall have seen the color of his blood." "Then all that remains for me to do is make the necessary arrangements for the duel," said Beauchamp. "I am quite indifferent on that score," replied the Count of Monte Cristo. "It was unnecessary to disturb me in the middle of an opera for such a trifling matter. Tell the Viscount that although I am the one insulted, I will give him the choice of arms, and will accept everything without discussion or dispute. Do you understand me? Everything, even combat by drawing lots, which is always very stupid. With me it is indifferent. I am sure of winning." "Sure of winning?" said Beauchamp, looking at the Count in amazement. "Certainly," said the Count, slightly shrugging his shoulders. "Otherwise I would not fight with Monsieur de Montcalf. I shall kill him. I cannot help myself. Send me word this evening to my house indicating the weapon and the hour. I do not like to be kept waiting." "Pistols, the weapon, 8 o'clock the hour, at the Bois de Vincennes," said Beauchamp, somewhat disconcerted, for he could not make up his mind whether he had to deal with an arrogant braggadocio or a supernatural being. "Very well," said Monte Cristo. "Now that all is arranged, Play Let Me Listen to the opera, and tell your friend Albert not to return this evening. Tell him to go home and sleep." Beauchamp left the box perfectly amazed. "Now," said Monte Cristo, turning toward Morrel, "I may reckon on you, may I not? The young man is acting blindfolded, and knows not the true cause of this duel, which is known only to God and to me. But I give you my word, Morrel, that God, who knows it, will be on our side." "Enough," said Morrel. "Who is your second witness?" "I do not know anyone in Paris on whom I could confer that honor except you, Morrel, and your brother-in-law. Do you think Emmanuel will render me this service?" "I can answer for him as for myself, Count." "Very well. That is all I require. You will both be with me at 7 o'clock in the morning." "We shall be there." "Hush! The curtain is rising. Let us listen. I could not lose a note of this opera. The music of Willem Tell is charming." Okay, so Albert and Monte Cristo are going to have a duel. Let's see how that goes.